I had Gospel Truth 4 years ago because I wrote it in 2020. And so I've put a record out since this last one was made. It's called Enough Already, but didn't feel like it was appropriate for that record. It just didn't really fit the theme of the record. I'm kind of big on themes. It helps me creatively when I am writing for a record. And so I didn't release it until 4 years later, which is now. It seemed to fit the season of life that I am in and the subject matter of the new record. So it just felt like the right time.
How would you describe the current season that you're in?
Oh, man. I had breakfast with a friend this morning and he asked me this great question. He said, "What are you starting and what are you quitting?" I was like, that's a great question, because I think life is full of things that we start and we finish, So I'm starting right now to read the New Testament. I've never read the entire New Testament. Surprisingly, I read the Old Testament and loved it. A lot of people are daunted by the Old Testament. So I started on November 1st. Reading through the New Testament, and I'm just finding that there's so much more clarity in my day if I have started it in God's Word. So that's something I'm starting, something I'm finishing. This season of touring has been one of the busiest that I've had in a long time. So I'm thinking toward next year and doing less touring, because I have 2 little girls, one of which I just had to hug, and because she's going to her piano practice, and she says, "Daddy, do you have to do interviews right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." So I'm just like, I'm quitting the busyness, I think, and trying to prioritize family. So that's the season that I'm in. I think today is really all we have, And
it's something I think, these questions that you seem to ask yourself come out, I think, in the music that you write as well, even in Gospel Truth. Are you being a good father? You hope that you can be a good dad. That's there. This idea of, have you become everything that you thought you would when you first met Jesus as well? What prompts those kind of questions to come up in you, do you think?
I love sentimentality. I actually wrote this song with a friend of mine from college. His name is Luke Laird. He's a country songwriter. And Luke has had immense success in the country world. I think he's had almost 30 number ones.
Wow. But
we started at the same place, and we were young, budding songwriters together. And so whenever we hang out, it's always kind of fun. We just get sentimental. And I think that's kind of where we started, just thinking back on, when we started this journey as musicians, and really to answer the question, am I who I wanted to be when I was 16? And I think the answer is surprisingly no. Am I a good man? Yes. But God has been better to me and more faithful to me than I could have even dreamt of when I started my journey with him back when I was 16. But I also think my life is really a journey of sanctification. And that as a whole is the gospel truth. God is constantly purifying my heart and pruning the things that the dead limbs. There's death that happens in my life, but there's also really good things that are born.
And it sounds like you kind of learn, like it's not a once and done thing. As much as we might love the idea that we start following Jesus and then it's all smooth sailing, or we've kind of got it sorted. It sounds like it's more of a daily practice for you.
Yeah, I'd say it's a practice. It's a discipline. It is a level of trust, because I think I finally relinquished a lot of control about 4 years ago, really during the pandemic, when I just realized control is an illusion. The Lord is faithful. He provides. And it's not always in the way that I expect, but it's always good. So that's what I'm learning.
Yeah. And before your last album, Enough Already, you did take about a 5-year break or so between albums. Is that break and everything you kind of learned in that window, is that still shaping the way that you write, that you create now? Or do you feel like you're kind of due another bit of a break?
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I feel like I think I want to take some time off, but I'm in a kind of an exciting season of creativity. And I think in that time, that it was like a 4-year period where really it was 2 solid that I took off. Thankfully, I could afford to take off. To answer your question, yes, it's very formative. And I know I'll look back on my life and see that season of rest where it shaped me, because I went to therapy and dealt with some childhood stuff. I think it was a critical time in my life where I did a lot of growing, and that's what I like to write about is growth. And luckily I've been able to do, like, next year is 20 years since I signed my record deal.
Wow.
So I hope there's been some growth. And
Yeah.
but I also hope that I'm still good at what I do. And I feel like I am. So that's why I'm not stopping.
Yeah, no, and we love that, you're writing a little bit more prolifically now, because we enjoy, hearing what you have to say. And I think too, for artists like yourself that do really write songs that reflect, that ask big questions, that speak so much about, as we've said, the gospel truth and this kind of bigger stuff. I feel like that's so needed when the world feels a little bit more chaotic, where there's a lot of tensions in different ways. Do world events affect the way that you write, or is it more about what you personally want to be expressing?
It's both. My last big song, See Me Through It, was actually written about when the U.S. was pulling out of Afghanistan in 2021. We had been there, since the 90s, trying to liberate people from Taliban rule. We sent so many troops, spent so much money. It was such a sacrifice for us to do this. And then we left the Middle East, and so many of us in the U.S. were just asking why. What is going on in the world, And I remember thinking the line, "Things are getting real, Jesus take the wheel." And so that's what kicked off my song, See Me Through It. I want to tell you that in September, just a few months ago, I found myself at a ranch in Colorado in the mountains. The Marine squadron that was there that day, when the bomb went off, when the evacuation happened, they had not been together in 3 years.
Wow.
And they all reunited at this ranch. And I was so blessed to be invited to be there to sing songs for them. But knowing that God used one of their darkest moments to inspire a song that now encourages people, including myself, it was really cool to be able to tell them, thank you for your sacrifice, and look what fruit came out of that.
Knowing the power of that kind of inspiration for you, what do you hope the songs that you're writing now do for the person that listens to them, whether it is on the radio or on the other side of your songwriting?
I hope that it just says God is real. He knows you. He desires for you to know him. And he loves you. That's what I want my music to do. I want it to cut through all the things that are scary and worrisome, and all the things that God begs us not to do. Don't be afraid. That music has that ability to reassure, and I hope that that's what my music is doing.